My name is Emily, and I'm 35 years old. For the past 10 years, I've been taking care of our home. My husband, Michael, is a doctor. We don't have any children, but we've been pretty happy. Then one day, everything changed. Michael came home late as usual and told me something shocking. I want a divorce. I'm marrying someone else, he said. I was stunned. What do you mean? I asked. We didn't marry for love, he added, and he was right. Our marriage was more of an arrangement. His parents wanted him to marry, and I seemed like a good match. We barely knew each other before we got married. The only thing we really had in common was our last name. Looking back, maybe I liked the idea of sharing the same last name, so we rushed into marriage, and for a while, things were okay. I never thought we'd end up divorcing after 10 years. Even though our marriage wasn't based on love, we'd been together for so long. But now, out of the blue, you want to marry someone else. When did you start betraying me? I asked, but Michael denied it. He said he met this nurse at the hospital about a year ago and was attracted to her charm. He said he was tired of living with someone as boring as me. I was shocked and hurt. How can you say that after all these years? I asked, but Michael was cold. He said living with me had been like hell, and he was done. I agreed to the divorce, even though it broke my heart. Then Michael revealed something else. We don't even need to go through the legal process because I never officially registered our marriage. We were just living together, not legally married. I felt betrayed and angry. Michael had kept this secret from me all these years, and now he was using it to avoid giving me anything in the divorce. The day we thought our marriage would be registered was actually the day it officially ended. I couldn't go because of an urgent matter, he said, but it turns out I never submitted it. Not submitted? Are you joking? We've been living as a married couple for 10 years. It's impossible that you didn't submit it, I exclaimed. Normally, yes. But I made that rule at the beginning. If you went to the office, everything would be ruined. When we got married, we made some rules. I, as a homemaker, would handle all the household chores. I was on an allowance and part-time work was prohibited. And Michael would handle all governmental and official matters. Why would you do such a thing? I asked. Because I was about to be forced into a marriage with someone I didn't love. I wasn't going to submit it easily. I was saving marriage for someone I truly wanted to be with. Then you should have refused the marriage proposal in the first place. I couldn't refuse. My parents are stubborn and wouldn't listen. What would have happened if I said I didn't want to marry? Plus, I wanted a housekeeper. I'm a busy doctor and can't often tend to household chores, so I decided to marry you as a housekeeper. It was a good deal for you too, right? You could eat well and have a roof over your head without working. You seemed desperate to get married too. Maybe you felt pressured because your friends were getting married. Even though we weren't actually married, you were seen as the woman who married a doctor. This 10-year relationship was a win-win for both of us. That's all it was, and it ends today. You should be grateful for the good times you had. Now you have to live on your own without relying on others. I can't believe this. Oh, and one more thing. Don't tell my parents about this. If you do something unnecessary, you know what will happen to your father, right? My father runs a medical equipment sales company and has a contract with the hospital where Michael works. Our marriage was how this connection was made. Michael was threatening me, implying that if I told his parents, he would sever the contract with my father's company. It's your fault for being deceived. How pitiful to be thrown out with nothing, he said, laughing. But the one who would be thrown out without knowing anything was actually him. I couldn't help but burst into laughter. What's so funny all of a sudden? He asked. I can't believe you became a doctor with that kind of knowledge, I said. What do you mean? He asked. I knew all along about your mistress and that you didn't submit our marriage registration. That's impossible. That's why I've been preparing, waiting for the day you'd bring it up yourself. I continued, I had a gut feeling about your infidelity for the past 6 months, but I lacked solid evidence to confront you. So I decided to hire a private investigator to look into your affair. The investigator told me, ma'am, there are 2 things I need to tell you. The first is that your husband is indeed having an affair. We got evidence of him entering a hotel with a nurse from his workplace. And the second is from their conversations. There's a possibility that you two are not legally married. Not legally married? What does that mean? I asked. I'd overheard your husband and his mistress at a cafe, the investigator continued. He said they didn't need to worry about alimony or property division since they never submitted a marriage registration. What? I can't believe it. We've been living as a married couple for 10 years. I don't know why he didn't submit the marriage registration. That's why he never let me handle any official procedures. Yeah, that seems to be the case. I can't believe this. How could this happen? It's unusual to hear about not submitting a marriage registration for 10 years, but it's not unheard of. This is too much. Am I just supposed to accept this? If we were never married from the start, there's nothing I can do. Not necessarily. What do you mean? Let's make him pay for deceiving you for 10 years. First, we need to prepare without him noticing, the investigator suggested. So I started preparing with the investigator to take action against my husband. So what if you knew we were never legally married from the start? Does that justify your actions with other women? Do you think you can avoid taking any responsibility? He said, trying to dismiss his actions. You called me pitiful for not knowing the truth, but it turns out you were the one who was pitiful. What do you mean? We're considered to be in a common law relationship on paper. So what? You might not know, but you can actually claim alimony and divide property in a common law relationship. What? He didn't know that not registering our marriage would come back to bite him. In a common law relationship, you can make claims. It's not widely known, but it's possible. Of course, there are conditions. From what I see in your case, it seems you meet those conditions. What are these conditions? The common law relationship is established based on two main criteria. First, both parties must have intended to marry. It's not just about living together, there must be a mutual intention to marry. This can be shown through things like having a wedding ceremony or being recognized as a couple by others. We did have a wedding ceremony, and our families and friends recognize us as a couple. So we meet the first criterion. The second criterion is living as if married. This includes sharing a household for more than 3 years. You've been living together as a couple for over 10 years. As a homemaker, you've obviously shared the household finances. This is recognized as a marital relationship. So that means if you can provide proof of what we discussed, you can claim alimony and divide property. I'm not an expert in this area, so I'll introduce you to a lawyer. You can work with them to bring him down. After consulting the lawyer I was referred to, I learned that I could indeed claim alimony and property division from my husband. I'm going to demand alimony and property division from you, I informed my husband, who turned pale. His confidence, which had been evident just a moment ago, was gone. But even if you can claim alimony and property division, you're just an unemployed woman. Do you plan to rely on your parents after being kicked out? He asked. Didn't I say I was preparing? I've already found a job starting next month. I've also found a new place to live. Don't worry about me. You thought I, a clueless homemaker, would be helpless, but the tables have turned. I'll make sure to discuss this with your parents, just so you know. Do you not care what happens to your father? If they want to break the contract, let them. Sure, you were the link to the hospital, but the contract continued because of my father and his company's efforts. Whether or not they keep the contract is up to them. Let's see if they'll break a contract just because the doctor's wife of 10 years was a lie. Try saying that. My father and I won't be affected if the contract is broken over this. It only shows the depth of their trust. We'll just find another hospital to partner with, I said firmly, taking out my phone. You're not calling your parents, are you? He asked nervously. That's exactly what I'm doing. Our parents think we're still married. It's only natural to inform them if this relationship is ending. To my surprise, my husband began to apologize. Please let me talk to them. Don't call. Why? You know how strict my parents are. If they find out about this, it's over. What does that have to do with me? Huh? You're asking me not to tell the truth because your parents are strict? Are you kidding? You could have refused to marry me from the start if you didn't intend to. After 10 years of a marriage based on lies, you're afraid of your parents finding out. I can't accept such a convenient story, but I can accept telling them the truth. I'll make sure both your parents and mine know everything. And so I called both sets of parents. All four were shocked upon hearing my story, and a meeting was promptly arranged at our house. I've heard everything over the phone. Is it true that you pretended to be married for 10 years without submitting a marriage registration? Speak up, you foolish son, my father-in-law demanded. It's true. I didn't submit it. Why did you do that? Didn't you think about how Emily would feel? I didn't have a choice. No choice? How can you say that? It's your fault, Mom and Dad. I didn't want to get married, but you started looking for a bride for me anyway, saying it was time. You arranged meetings and pressured me into marriage. But you agreed to it, didn't you? I had to agree. If I had refused, you would have caused a scene, so I decided to go through with it. If you were willing to marry, why didn't you register the marriage? I read about a man online who was in the same situation. He didn't want to marry but had to because of his parents. He lived as if married without registering, then revealed the truth when he found someone he truly loved. That's shocking. What happened to him in the end? Now he's married to the person he loves and has a real marriage, so I plan to marry my girlfriend too and have a real marriage. After hearing his explanation, my parents, who had been quiet until then, finally spoke up. A real marriage, huh? Maybe you didn't marry for love, but remember what you promised at the wedding? We will always care for each other and create a happy home. What did those words mean to you? What did you show us back then? We trusted you with our daughter's happiness, but for 10 years you deceived her by not registering the marriage. Did you create a happy home? And now you're leaving her for another woman. Can someone who acts without care, even if they change partners, truly have a real marriage? Well, We were glad you married our daughter, not just because you're a doctor. We thought she could build a happy life with someone as sincere as you. But it seems we were wrong and misled. And you threatened our daughter that if she told us, you'd end your business contract with us. Really? If you're going to threaten our daughter, we'll end the contract ourselves. Be warned, we will speak the truth when asked. If you do that, there will be gossip at the hospital. Gossip? Yes, maybe, but that's because of what you did. You were the one who threatened us with ending the contract. My husband panicked at this unexpected turn. Please, let's talk about this calmly. Don't play games with us. My father-in-law grabbed my husband's collar, furious. We didn't raise you to be a scoundrel. What were you thinking? Dad, please stop. By not registering the marriage, you may have thought you were protecting yourself, but because of your selfish actions, Emily was misled for 10 years. What were you thinking, causing so much trouble to others? The room fell silent. Faced with my father-in-law's words, my husband had nothing more to say. Emily and her parents, I'm really sorry for the trouble caused by this idiot. No, your parents shouldn't apologize. It's not their fault. But as parents, we partly bear responsibility for letting him behave this way. We'll take him home now and ensure he stops his reckless actions. We'll handle the aftermath properly. We're deeply sorry for all of this. With that, my husband was taken away by his parents to their home. You've been through so much. You should come back home for now and rest. We'll figure out the next steps later. Don't worry about anything right now, my parents said kindly. Thank you, but I'm not going back home just yet. There are things I need to take care of. I declined and chose to stay in my own home. What I needed to do was prepare for the final settlement with my now ex-husband, gathering evidence for our common-law relationship. I was preparing to claim alimony and divide our assets. A few weeks later, I arranged a meeting with a lawyer. Even if I agree to alimony, why should I divide my property? She's been a homemaker for 10 years, never worked a day. I paid for everything: furniture, clothes, food. Now you're saying I have to give away the money I worked hard for. He protested, unwilling to accept sharing his earnings with me. Yes, that's correct. Your earnings and the belongings acquired during our relationship are subject to division. Why does it have to be like this? Who took care of the house and cooked meals while you were at work? Who managed everything at home? That doesn't matter now. No, it does matter. A homemaker deserves a share of the assets because running a household and raising children have real economic value. Speaking not just as a lawyer but as a person, do you think housework is something anyone can do, something that's just expected of a homemaker? The reason you could focus on your career was because of her support. Don't overlook that. What? This situation is a consequence of your actions, yet you're upset about fairness. What did you say? Never mind. Anyway, she's entitled to half of our assets through property division. That's how it works. Damn. As for alimony, we're seeking $100,000 from you. $100,000? Why so much for a relationship that wasn't even legally married? It's precisely because it wasn't a legal marriage. Typically, alimony in common-law relationships ranges from $10,000 to $40,000. However, in your case, you pretended to be married for 10 years and then tried to discard her when you found someone else. The amount is based on the seriousness and duration of your actions. But still, you might think 10 years is short, but it's longer than you realize. During that time, she committed herself to you, believing you were married. You have no right to complain after betraying her. It was a powerful response. He had no rebuttal and reluctantly agreed to my terms. Later, I also sent a notice of claim for alimony to his mistress. With the help of an investigator, I knew who she was and where she worked, a nurse at the same hospital where he did. Wait, this isn't what you told me. What's going on? I told you not to approach me at work. I received this from your wife. You said there wouldn't be any alimony because we weren't legally married. What's going on? Later, I found out that in a panic after receiving the alimony claim from me, she confronted him at the hospital with the notice. All right, let's talk about this later, not here. There are too many people around. We'll both be in trouble if this gets out. I don't care about that. I can't afford this kind of alimony. You said it would be fine, so you should pay it. What? I'm not paying anything. You wanted this relationship. You said I was the one for you, that you wanted to marry me. Hey, keep it down. Everyone can hear us. Just so you know, I'm not the one at fault here. If you want to settle things with your wife, handle it yourself. Tell her I don't know her anything, and that you'll sort everything out. Wait. This conversation ended up exposing their affair to the entire hospital, quickly becoming the talk of the place. Then came the final blow when my father requested to terminate our contract with the hospital. I apologize, but we'd like to end our contract by the end of next month. Aware of the rumors, the hospital inquired, "Forgive me for asking, but is the reason for canceling related to Dr. Michael's affair? It's become quite a topic here." Yes, a nurse believed to be involved caused quite a scene. I never imagined he had pretended to be married for 10 years without actually registering. You mean he never filed the marriage registration? Did you know he hadn't done that? All I knew was that he was married and had an affair. What do you mean he didn't file the marriage registration? After my father's request, it came to light that he had deceived me for 10 years by not filing the marriage registration. This news spread among the other nurses. Dr. Michael deceived his wife for 10 years by not filing the marriage registration and had an affair with a nurse. How awful! How could he do that? Could someone really go unnoticed for 10 years? It seems Emily's maiden name was the same, and he handled all the official paperwork. That's concerning. The rumors spread not only among hospital staff but also reached patients, leading both Michael and his mistress to face cold stares. Unable to bear it, they both resigned from the hospital soon after. As my father asked me, "Did you manage to get the alimony?" Yes, I received payments from both him and his mistress. She resisted paying until the end, claiming she was also deceived, but the lawyer explained her argument wouldn't hold, and she reluctantly agreed to pay. That's good. What about you, Dad? Did the contract end up getting cancelled? No, that's not happening anymore. He resigned, and because our company is trusted, the hospital asked us to keep the contract. We couldn't cancel it after they asked like that. That's a relief. Afterwards, I started a new life in a new place and found happiness. About a year and a half later, my ex-husband reached out to me. Is it true you got remarried? I had married a man I met through work, and somehow he had found out. I wonder whose number this is. You went through the trouble of changing your number just to contact me. Just answer my question. Yes, I got married. You betrayed me. Betrayal? We were never legally married, so I didn't think it would matter to you, right? That's beside the point. Exactly, things are different now. We're completely separated, so my marriage has nothing to do with you. Is that why you contacted me? After I said this, he seemed speechless for a moment, then he scoffed. Of course you're still unmarried, probably because you haven't bothered to file any paperwork. That's just like you. But he was mistaken. Actually, my husband isn't like you at all. He knows everything about your situation, so to ease any concerns I had, we went together to handle the paperwork. Unfortunately for you, things didn't turn out as you assumed. I can understand why you might wish for my unhappiness, given your own misery, but I'm sorry to disappoint you. We're happily married. I told him this and hung up the phone. I don't know what kind of life he leads now, but unless he changes his selfish ways, he's unlikely to find happiness.